Ryan lived in the tower city where the sky was always covered with thick clouds. The ground below was no longer safe, so people had built tall towers that rose like mountains. Each tower had hundreds of levels, and long spiral stairs connected them. Most people used lifts, but sometimes the old stairs were the only path when the power flickered or machines failed. Ryan liked the stairs. They were quiet. When he wanted to think, he walked down the stone steps, listening to his own footsteps echoing against the walls. The air smelled of dust and metal, and faint light bulbs glowed on the walls. To others, the stairs felt heavy and forgotten, but to Ryan, they felt alive. One night, when the city above was asleep, Ryan went down the stairs again. He carried a small lamp because many of the bulbs had burned out long ago. The tower was silent, but halfway down he froze. Something soft touched his ears. It was not the sound of his footsteps, nor the creak of the old metal. It was a whisper. He stood still, his lamp trembling in his hand. The whisper grew clearer. It was not one voice but many, layered together, rising and falling like waves. The sound was faint, almost like wind, but it carried a rhythm, as if words were hidden inside. Ryan strained to listen. The voices spoke in a language he had never heard before. Ryan's heart beat fast. He looked up the stairs, nothing. He looked down, just the winding shadows of the stairwell. "Who's there?" he asked softly, though his throat felt dry. No one answered, but the whispering continued. It slid along the walls, around the corners, curling like smoke. He walked carefully, step by step. Every few moments the whispers grew louder, then faded away. It felt like they were guiding him to a certain part of the stairs. He reached level 47, a place where the doors had been locked for years. The whole level was empty, sealed after a fire long ago. The walls there were darker, the air colder. And that was where the whispers were strongest. Ryan placed his hand on the wall. To his surprise, the surface hummed under his touch, almost like a quiet vibration. The whispers pulsed with it, rising and falling in rhythm with his heartbeat. He pulled his hand back in shock. The wall looked normal, yet it felt alive. Is someone trapped inside, he wondered. But when he leaned closer, he realized the voices were not calling for help. They were speaking, chanting in a pattern. It was a language, not just random sounds. The thought both frightened and excited him. He wanted to run back upstairs, but something in him refused. He listened longer, trying to catch even one familiar word. He could not, but he sensed meaning behind the tones. The whispers seemed to be saying, "Come closer. Do not fear." That night, Ryan returned to his small room near the top floors. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the soft echo of those voices. He thought about telling his neighbors, but most would laugh. People in the tower believed in machines, not mysteries. Only children spoke of ghosts in the walls. The next day, Ryan decided to test himself. He returned to the stairs during daylight. The hum was still there, faint but steady. The whispers had grown quieter, as if they only dared to speak at night. Yet he was sure now he was not imagining them. Ryan kept the secret for 2 days, but it grew heavier in his mind. At last, he told his friend Lena. She was curious and often believed in things others ignored. When Ryan whispered, "There are voices on the stairs," she didn't laugh. She tilted her head and asked, "What kind of voices?" "Not human," Ryan said. "They sound far away, but close at the same time. Like the stairs themselves are talking." Lena looked thoughtful. "Maybe they are. Old structures hold memories. My grandfather once said these towers were not built only by us. Maybe some of their history is still inside." Her words gave Ryan chills. He remembered how the wall had hummed beneath his hand. Could the stairs really hold a memory? Or was it something more? That night, he and Lena crept back to level 47 with a small recorder. They sat quietly, waiting. Hours passed. The tower was silent except for the creaks of metal. Then, just before midnight, the whispers returned. Lena's eyes widened. "You're right," she whispered. "I hear them." The voices grew strong, swirling around them like a low song. The recorder's light blinked as it captured the sound. Lena held Ryan's hand, both afraid and amazed. The voices rose together, then dropped to silence. Ryan felt the air shift, as though something unseen had just noticed them. He realized then that the whispers were not random, not accidents of sound. They were meant for someone. They were waiting for him. And as the last echo faded into the stairwell, Ryan knew his life inside the tower was about to change forever. The recording device blinked in Lena's hand as the whispers faded into silence. Both she and Ryan stood still, afraid to even breathe too loudly. The stairwell returned to its ordinary stillness, the hum of the walls almost hidden again. Ryan looked at Lena. "You heard them, didn't you?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes. I thought you were only imagining it before. But this," she held up the recorder. "This is real. We can prove it." Her voice shook with both excitement and fear. They climbed back up the stairs quickly, neither of them daring to look behind. The silence now felt heavier than the whispers had been. When they reached Lena's small workshop room on level 62, she played back the recording. The device crackled with static at first, but then the sound emerged: soft, layered voices whispering in patterns. Even through the tiny speaker, it made the hair on their necks rise. "It doesn't sound like any language I know," Lena said, turning the recorder over as if it might explain itself. Ryan leaned closer. "But it is a language. The sounds repeat. Listen, those 3 notes, then again, and again." She frowned, listening carefully. "You're right. It's not random." They sat together for hours, playing the recording over and over. The voices seemed to fold in on themselves, like echoes of echoes, but always with order. At last, when their eyes grew heavy, Lena set the recorder down. "We need to go back there tomorrow. Maybe the whispers are tied to that level, the closed floor." Ryan hesitated. Level 47 had been abandoned for years. People said a fire long ago had damaged the floor and left it unsafe. The doors were sealed, and no one ever went inside. But that was exactly where the whispers had grown strongest. That night, Ryan dreamed of the stairwell. In his dream, the steps stretched endlessly downward, glowing faintly with symbols carved into the walls. The whispers surrounded him, calling his name. He woke with his heart racing, the sound still echoing in his ears. The next day, he and Lena carried a small bag of tools. Together, they returned to level 47. The door was rusted shut, its lock long frozen. Lena knelt and studied it. "It's old. I can open it, but we have to be careful. If anyone sees us, they'll ask questions." Ryan kept watch while Lena worked. Her hands moved quickly with the thin rod and wire. After a few tense minutes, the lock clicked, and the door creaked open. Dust poured out, and a sharp smell of burnt metal filled the air. Inside, the corridor was dark. Their lamps lit broken walls, scattered debris, and black marks from fire long past. The air was heavy, yet the whispers grew clearer as soon as they stepped in. The sound rolled across the ceiling, slipping through cracks, wrapping around their ears. Ryan swallowed. "It's stronger here. Like the voices have been waiting." Lena raised her lamp higher. "Look at the walls." Symbols faintly glowed beneath the soot, thin lines etched into the stone. They pulsed gently, as if breathing. The markings did not look human. They curved and spiraled with strange beauty, forming patterns that matched the rhythm of the whispers. Lena traced one with her finger, though she didn't touch it directly. "These weren't made by us." Ryan nodded, feeling a chill. Then who? They walked deeper into the forgotten passage. Every step brought new symbols, brighter and clearer. At one point, Ryan pressed his palm against the wall again. Just like before, the surface hummed, alive with energy. For a brief moment, the whispers grew louder, as if responding to him. "Did you hear that?" he asked. "Yes," Lena whispered. "It's like they know you." The thought made Ryan's skin prickle. Why him? Why not anyone else who had walked these stairs before? Suddenly, a sound echoed from behind them, the creak of footsteps. They spun around, but the stairwell was empty. Still, the feeling of being watched pressed heavily on them. "Maybe we should go back," Lena said nervously. But Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. There's something here we're meant to find." They pushed forward until the corridor ended in a sealed door covered in glowing marks. The whispers swelled as they approached, rising like a chant. Lena stepped closer. "It feels like it's calling to you." Ryan lifted his hand. The symbols on the door brightened under his touch, glowing white for a moment before fading. The whispers fell silent. The sudden quiet was almost painful. Neither of them moved. The door remained closed, but something had changed. The air felt charged, like the pause before a storm. Lena whispered, "What did you do?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "But I think the door recognized me." They stood there in silence, listening to the heavy stillness. Finally, Lena pulled out the recorder again and set it on the floor. "We'll come back tomorrow. If the voices return, maybe they'll tell us more." As they walked back up the stairs, both of them felt the same uneasy truth. The whispers were not random sounds trapped in old walls. They were a message. And now, after centuries of silence, the message had found someone to hear it. Ryan could not stop thinking about the door. The way it had glowed under his touch. The way the whispers had gone quiet, almost as if they were waiting for him to open it. For the first time in his life, he felt that the tower was more than just a home. It was hiding a secret. A secret that wanted to be found. The sealed door on level 47 stayed in Ryan's mind all night. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his room, hearing echoes of whispers in the silence. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the glowing symbols and felt again the hum that had answered his touch. By morning, he knew he could not ignore it. The voices wanted something, and somehow they had chosen him. When Ryan met Lena that day, she already had the recorder in her hand. "The sound changed last night," she said. "I played it back again and again. Listen." She pressed the button, and the familiar whispers filled the room. But this time, Ryan noticed something different. The tones were sharper, more focused. They rose and fell like questions and answers. "It's like they're speaking directly now," Lena said. "Not just noise." Ryan leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "Almost like they knew we touched the door." Lena nodded. "Exactly. The moment you touched it, the voices stopped. And when they came back, they were different. That can't be a coincidence." The thought gave Ryan chills. The whispers were not only sounds from the past, they were aware. They had noticed him. That evening, the two of them returned to the forgotten passage. Dust swirled in the air as they stepped onto the blackened floor. The marks on the walls glowed faintly, pulsing with a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. When they reached the sealed door again, the whispers returned at once, louder than before. The sound filled the passage, bouncing from wall to wall, 1,000 voices overlapping. But this time, the voices had structure. They rose together, paused, then repeated. Lena whispered, "It's a pattern. They're trying to say something." She pulled out a small notebook and began writing. Every time the tones repeated, she marked symbols of her own dots and lines to show the rhythm. Ryan placed his hand against the door again. The glow flared bright, and the whispers shifted, lowering in pitch as though responding to him. He pulled his hand back, and the glow faded. The whispers returned to their earlier chant. "They react to you," Lena said in awe. "Not me. Not anyone else. You." Ryan shook his head. "But why? I'm no one special." "Maybe that's exactly why," Lena replied softly. They stayed there for hours, listening, writing, comparing sounds. Slowly, Lena began to notice repetitions, groups of 3 tones, groups of 5, then silence. She tapped her pencil against the page. This might be a language. The silences are breaks between words. If we can find the meaning, we can understand the message. Ryan looked at her. But whose language? These symbols on the wall, they're not ours. And they've been here longer than anyone remembers. Lena's eyes shone with curiosity. Maybe they're older than the tower itself. Maybe someone else built parts of it, long before us. The idea made Ryan's chest tighten. For generations, people had believed the towers were built only by humans, after the surface of the earth was lost. But what if that wasn't the full truth? As they prepared to leave, Ryan touched the door one last time. The glow pulsed brighter than before, and for a single instant, the whispers broke into clear sound. A word, sharp, ringing, echoed through the passage. Both Ryan and Lena froze. "Did you hear that?" Ryan whispered. Lena nodded slowly, her face pale. "Yes. That wasn't just a tone. That was a word." They repeated it aloud, trying to shape the strange syllables with their mouths. It felt odd, heavy on the tongue, but real. "The voices wanted us to hear that," Ryan said quietly. "They gave us their word." When they climbed back up the stairs, Ryan felt a strange energy in his chest. It was no longer just mystery, it was contact. The whispers had crossed the gap between them. That night, Lena played the recording again. They listened carefully, searching for more words hidden inside the waves of sound. Each time the strange syllable returned, Lena circled it in her notebook. By the end, they were sure, it was repeated often, like the core of the message. "What if it's a name?" Lena suggested. "Like the name of the one who speaks." "Or maybe," Ryan said slowly, "it's the name of the one who should listen." The thought silenced them both. Over the next few days, they kept returning. They sat in the dusty corridor with their lamps, marking symbols, testing sounds, whispering guesses. The whispers always returned, always shifting, always more alive when Ryan touched the door. Soon, they could recognize a handful of words. Not their meanings, but their shapes, sounds that belonged together, repeated again and again. One evening, as they sat in silence, Ryan asked the question that had grown inside him since the beginning. "Lena, do you think these voices are from people? Or from something else?" Lena closed her notebook. Her eyes glimmered in the faint light. "I don't think they're human. Not from any history we know. Maybe they're older. Maybe they're not even from this world." The words hung between them like a shadow. If the whispers were not human, then what were they? That night, as Ryan climbed the stairs back to his room, he felt a strange calm in his chest. He was no longer just a boy walking empty stairs. He was carrying a message, a voice from the past, or perhaps from far away. The voices had chosen him. And now, he was beginning to understand why. The days passed quickly, but for Ryan and Lena, life no longer felt the same. Every evening, they returned to level 47, carrying their lamps and notebook, listening to the whispers that curled through the dark corridor. Each time Ryan touched the sealed door, the voices changed, sometimes offering a word, sometimes falling silent as if they were waiting. Lena grew skilled at writing the repeating sounds, drawing strange symbols to match them. Ryan grew skilled at listening, hearing differences in tone that others might miss. But with every visit, something else began to happen. Ryan first noticed it one night when they were climbing back up the stairs. The tower was silent, their lamps casting long shadows across the walls. Then, in the corner of his eye, he saw movement. A figure stood on the landing above them, still and quiet, its outline almost hidden in the dim light. "Lena," he whispered, gripping her arm. "Do you see that?" She followed his gaze, but the landing was empty. "See what?" she asked softly. Ryan blinked. The figure was gone. The air was still, as though nothing had been there at all. He shook his head. Maybe I imagined it? But he knew what he had seen. The next evening, as they sat near the sealed door, Ryan felt it again, the sense of being watched. The back of his neck tingled. He lifted his lamp and swung it across the passage. For a moment, the light caught something in the corner, a shape, tall and thin, with eyes that reflected faintly like glass. But when the light steadied, there was nothing. This time, Lena saw his face pale. "Ryan, what is it?" He swallowed. "We're not alone." From then on, the feeling grew stronger. The whispers no longer felt like the only presence in the stairwell. Something else lingered in the shadows, silent, patient, watching. One night, as they left level 47, they heard footsteps behind them. The sound echoed in rhythm with theirs, always a few steps back. When they stopped, the sound stopped. When they walked, it followed. Lena gripped his sleeve. "There's someone there." They turned quickly, but the stairwell was empty. Their lamps shone only on stone walls and winding steps. The air was cold and heavy. Ryan's heart pounded. "It's following us." The footsteps faded, but the unease did not. A few days later, they returned again, determined to keep studying the whispers despite the strange presence. The sealed door glowed faintly when Ryan touched it, the whispers folding into low tones that almost formed sentences. Lena bent over her notebook, carefully writing each pattern. Then the air shifted. Ryan felt it at once, the prickling chill of being watched. He raised his lamp and froze. At the far end of the corridor, half hidden in the shadows, stood a figure. It was tall and thin, its body shaped like a shadow stretched along the wall. Its face was unclear, but two faint glimmers shone where eyes might be. Ryan gasped, and Lena looked up. She saw it too. Her lamp trembled in her hand. "What is that?" she whispered. The figure did not move. It stood perfectly still, watching them. Then, as if it had never been there, it melted back into the darkness and was gone. Silence fell heavy. The whispers had stopped too, as if the presence of the figure had silenced them. Ryan's voice shook. "They've been here all along. Watching. Waiting." Lena hugged her notebook close. Do you think they are connected to the voices?" Ryan stared at the dark corridor where the figure had stood. His mind was torn between fear and wonder. Maybe. Or maybe they are protecting the voices. Guarding them. That night, neither of them could sleep. They spoke quietly in Lena's workshop, going over what they had seen. "If they are guardians," Lena said, "why show themselves now? Why not before?" "Because of me," Ryan replied. His eyes were distant. "Because I touched the door. Because the voices answered me." The thought weighed on him. If the Watchers were guardians, then his actions had awakened them. They were not simply shadows in the stairwell, they had purpose. The next evening, when they returned once more, the Watchers did not appear, but the feeling of their eyes was everywhere. The whispers seemed restless, shifting quickly, almost urgent. Lena wrote as fast as she could, while Ryan pressed his hand to the door again. This time, a strange image filled his mind, a flash of light, a map of stars, and then the symbol of the tower itself. He gasped and stepped back, his breath quick. "Ryan, what happened?" Lena asked. "I saw something," he whispered. "Not just sound. Pictures. A message." The door pulsed once, then grew dark again. The whispers faded. The corridor returned to silence. Ryan looked at Lena, his chest tight. "They're trying to show us something. A path, maybe. A warning." But even as he spoke, he felt it again, the weight of unseen eyes on him. Somewhere in the shadows of the stairwell, the silent watchers listened to. The next mornings and nights blurred together for Ryan and Lena. School, chores, and daily life no longer held their attention. Their minds were fixed on the stairwell, the sealed door, and the watchers who stood in the shadows. But more than anything, they thought about the voices. Lena filled pages of her notebook with strange marks. She copied the repeating sounds again and again, until she could see the rhythm even without listening to the recorder. Ryan sat beside her, replaying the whispers, tapping his finger on the table when the tones rose or fell. One afternoon, Lena set her pencil down and stared at the pages. "Look at this," she said. "Here, and here it's the same. The voices repeat the sound in the same way each time." Ryan leaned closer. He saw 3 curved lines she had drawn. That sound was stronger near the sealed door, he remembered. Lena nodded. "And here's another. 5 short tones, then silence. It comes again and again. I think it's not just words. It's directions." "Directions?" Ryan asked. "Like a path," Lena said. She traced her pencil across the page. 3 tones for a place. 5 tones for another. Together they make a map." Ryan sat back, his chest tightening. A map hidden inside whispers. It sounded impossible, yet it also felt true. He remembered the flash of images he had seen when the door glowed under his hand, the stars, the tower, the shapes of lines connecting them. "They're showing us where to go," he said quietly. That evening, they returned to level 47. The corridor greeted them with its usual silence, the marks on the wall glowing faintly under their lamps. When Ryan pressed his hand to the door, the whispers rushed back, louder than before, almost impatient. Lena quickly opened her notebook. "Listen carefully," she said. "This is where the pattern begins." The voices rose and fell, 3 tones, then 5, then silence. Then again, repeating. Ryan closed his eyes, letting the sound sink into his mind. This time, instead of confusion, he felt a strange clarity. The tones were not only sound, they were coordinates, points on a path. As he listened, he felt the same image bloom inside him, stars shining in the dark, lines connecting them, forming a shape like a key. "I can see it," he whispered. "The voices are drawing a picture in my head." Lena looked at him in awe. "You're seeing the map?" Ryan nodded slowly. "It leads somewhere beneath the tower. That's what they're showing us." Before they could speak more, the air shifted. Both of them froze. Down the stairwell, faint footsteps echoed, soft, measured, coming closer. Lena clutched her notebook. The watchers. The footsteps stopped, but the sense of being watched grew stronger. The shadows along the corridor thickened. The whispers lowered to a hush, as if hiding. Ryan whispered, "They don't want us to hear more." For a long moment, the two of them stood in silence, holding their lamps close. Then, slowly, the air eased again. The footsteps faded, leaving only the echo of their own breaths. Lena looked at Ryan. "If the watchers guard this place, maybe they're trying to stop us. Or maybe," Ryan said, "they're testing us. To see if we're strong enough to follow." The thought stayed with them as they climbed back up the tower. Over the next few days, Lena worked to match the repeating sounds with shapes on her notebook. She drew circles for tones, lines for silences, connecting them into patterns. The more she worked, the more the drawings resembled a path downward, twisting like the spiral stairs themselves. One night, when she finished a page, she pushed it toward Ryan. "This isn't just sound. This is a map of the lower tower. Look, these marks line up with levels. And here this point matches the sealed chamber." Ryan stared at it. The path continued below the door, deeper than any level they had ever visited. "There's more below?" he asked. "Yes," Lena whispered. "The voices are guiding us to something hidden far beneath." Ryan remembered the flash of light, the stars forming shapes, the sense of meaning in the tones. A warning, he thought. Or a gift. The next time they visited level 47, he placed both hands on the door. The glow surged bright, and for an instant, the whispers broke into clarity. He heard not just tones but words, though in a strange, alien tongue. One word struck him hardest, ringing like a bell in his chest. Lena saw his face pale. "What is it? What did you hear?" Ryan's lips trembled as he repeated the strange sound. "It means danger." Silence followed, heavy and deep. Lena's eyes widened. "Then the whispers aren't only giving us a map. They're warning us." Ryan's heart pounded. The map led downward, but it was not simply a path to discovery, it was a path to something the Watchers guarded, something dangerous. And still, the whispers wanted him to follow. The word Ryan had heard, danger, stayed in his chest like a stone. Every time he thought of the glowing door, the map of tones, and the shadowy Watchers, he felt both afraid and curious. The whispers had given him a warning, yet they still called to him, guiding him deeper. Lena noticed his restless silence. One evening, as they sat in her workshop surrounded by papers filled with symbols and drawings, she spoke softly. "We can stop, Ryan. Maybe the warning means we're not supposed to go further." Ryan shook his head. "But the voices chose us. If they wanted us to turn back, they wouldn't keep showing us the path. They want us to follow, even if it's dangerous." Lena looked down at her notebook. "Then we must be careful. The Watchers, they will not let us pass easily." That night, they prepared. Lena packed tools, ropes, lamps, food, water, and carefully folded the pages of her notebook. Ryan brought a stronger lantern and a spare recorder. Their hearts were heavy, but their steps were steady as they returned to level 47. The corridor welcomed them with silence, the glowing marks faint but alive. When Ryan pressed his hands to the sealed door, the glow spread wider than ever before, washing across the wall in ripples of light. The whispers swelled into a chorus, and the door itself shuddered. Then, slowly, it opened. Dust fell from the edges as the heavy door slid aside, revealing a dark passage beyond. A breath of cold air swept over them, carrying the scent of stone untouched for centuries. Lena's voice trembled. "It's been waiting." Ryan lifted his lantern. "Then let's go." They stepped through. The passage sloped downward, spiraling much like the stairs above, but narrower and carved from stone rather than metal. The glowing symbols lined the walls here too, brighter and sharper, guiding their way. The whispers followed them, softer now, like a constant hum in the background. Hours seemed to pass as they descended. The deeper they went, the stronger the feeling grew that the tower was not only a place of shelter, but also a shell hiding something far older. At last, the passage widened into a vast chamber. Their lamps revealed towering pillars carved with more glowing marks, and at the center of the chamber stood a structure unlike anything they had ever seen. It was shaped like a sphere, suspended in the air, covered in the same spiraling symbols. Faint light pulsed from its surface, like a heartbeat. Lena gasped. "This is it. This is what the map was leading us to." Ryan stepped closer, his chest tight with awe. The whispers filled the chamber, no longer faint but clear, surrounding them from every direction. Yet even now, the words were half hidden, as if the voices spoke from the edge of understanding. He raised his hand, and the sphere brightened in response. Lena clutched his sleeve. "Be careful. Remember the warning." But Ryan could not stop. The glow drew him closer, and when his fingers brushed the surface, light spread across the chamber. In that moment, images burst into his mind, flashes of stars, falling worlds, towers rising from broken ground. He saw beings not human, tall and graceful, working side by side to build something within the earth. He felt their voices, not with his ears but in his thoughts. "We built this for you. For those who would come after." He staggered back, gasping. Lena caught him. "What did you see?" "They were here," Ryan whispered. "Not humans. Builders from far away. They made the towers, or at least part of them. They left this behind for us." Lena's eyes widened. "Then the whispers are their voices. Echoes of them." Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes. And they left a warning." He closed his eyes, steadying himself. Among the visions, one had stood out, a shape hidden beneath the earth, deep below the chamber. A shape that pulsed with the same light as the sphere but darker, heavier. "They showed me something dangerous," he said quietly. "Something still sleeping under us. That's why the watchers guard the door." As if in answer, a sound echoed across the chamber. Both turned sharply. At the edge of the light stood two of the watchers. Their tall, thin shapes blended with the pillars, their glass-like eyes reflecting the glow. They did not move, but their presence was clear. Lena's hand tightened around her notebook. "They followed us." Ryan lifted the lantern. "Maybe they've always been here. Guarding this place." The watchers stood in silence, not attacking, not fleeing. Only watching. Then, slowly, they stepped back into the shadows, disappearing once more. Ryan's heart pounded, but strangely, he felt no hatred from them. Only duty. "They want to see what we will do," he whispered. The sphere pulsed again, softer this time, and the whispers faded into silence. The chamber returned to stillness. Lena closed her notebook. "We found a hidden chamber. We found the builder's voice. But what do we do now?" Ryan looked at the sphere. The glow lingered in his mind, along with the visions of danger below. "We listen. We learn. And when the time comes, we answer." The chamber was no longer just a mystery, it was a promise. A promise left by those who had walked the stars before, waiting for humanity to be ready. The hidden chamber stayed in Ryan's mind long after they returned to Lena's workshop. He could still see the glowing sphere, still feel the pulse of light that had touched his thoughts. The voices had spoken through pictures and feelings, showing him pieces of a truth too large to hold. Lena worked late into the nights, filling page after page with drawings of the symbols, the sphere, and the visions Ryan described. Her workshop was filled with glowing sketches and maps, the air heavy with quiet purpose. One evening, Lena looked up from her notes. "Ryan, do you think this was only meant for us? Or for everyone?" Ryan hesitated. "I don't know. But the voices didn't choose us at random. They called to us because we listened. Maybe anyone could hear them if they truly listened." Her eyes shone with both fear and hope. "Then maybe we should share what we found." But Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. The watchers guard the secret for a reason. The builders left warnings. If we rush, we may awaken the danger too soon." Lena sighed but did not argue. She understood. Knowledge was powerful, but timing mattered more. Days turned into weeks. Ryan often returned to the chamber, guided by the whispers that still echoed faintly in his ears. Each visit left him with new fragments of vision, shapes of star maps, waves of sound, patterns of light flowing through the earth like rivers. One night, he stood before the sphere again, his hand resting gently on its glowing surface. "What do you want from us?" he whispered. For a long moment, Silence answered. Then warmth spread into his hand, up his arm, and into his chest. Images burst again, this time clearer than ever. He saw Earth long ago, broken and wounded. He saw the builders arrive, shaping towers from stone and light, giving the planet balance again. He saw them whisper into the stairwells, leaving their voices as guides for whoever would come after. And then he saw something else, something hidden deep beneath the ground. A mass of dark energy, locked in chains of light, struggling like a storm behind walls. The voices spoke in his mind at last, not in words but in feelings. Guard it. Wait. One day it will rise, and you must be ready. Ryan fell to his knees, the glow fading from his hand. His breath shook, but his heart was steady. He finally understood. The whispers were not only a guide. They were a call for guardians. Humanity was not meant to open everything the builders had left, not yet. They were meant to watch, to learn, and to protect. When he returned to Lena, she listened carefully as he told her everything. Her eyes widened with every word, her pencil frozen above the page. So it's true, she whispered. Something sleeps below us. Something dangerous. Yes, Ryan said. And the builders knew it. That's why the Watchers are here. That's why the whispers remain. They're waiting for the time when humanity can face it. Lena set her pencil down and looked at him. Then we are part of it now. We've been chosen to keep the secret until others are ready. Ryan nodded. We are not explorers anymore. We are keepers. From that day, their work changed. They no longer sought to open new doors or force answers. Instead, they listened. They walked the stairs night after night, tracing the soft tones that guided them. They recorded the voices, not to spread them widely, but to preserve them carefully. They also began teaching a small circle of trusted friends, those who showed patience, respect, and curiosity without greed. Slowly, quietly, a group of listeners formed, hidden within the city. The whispers grew stronger as if approving. Sometimes, on the silent stairs, Ryan felt warmth on his shoulder or heard words too clear to be chance. Well done. Keep listening. Years passed. The city above the tower changed, new machines, new lights, new rules, but the stairs below remained the same, winding downward with whispers that never died. Ryan and Lena grew older, but their steps never slowed when they walked the hidden paths. One final time, Ryan stood in the great chamber before the glowing sphere. The Watchers were there too, silent at the edges of the light. He no longer feared them. He bowed his head in respect. Your secret is safe, he whispered. We will guard it until the day comes. The sphere pulsed softly, like a heartbeat answering his promise. For the first time, the whispers formed words in his mind that were clear and strong. You are ready. Not for the end, but for the waiting. Ryan smiled, a deep calm filling his chest. He understood now. Humanity's greatness was not in rushing forward blindly, but in knowing when to pause, when to listen, when to guard what truly mattered. He left the chamber with Lena at his side, the whispers still alive behind them, carried down the endless stairs. And so the story of the tower was not of conquest, but of guardianship. Not of unlocking all mysteries, but of holding them safe until the world was ready. The whispers on the stairs continued, soft and eternal, waiting for the next listener brave enough and patient enough to hear.